Thank you so much.
First of all, tell us the context in which this issue of how, of who built Lagos, Kaduna, Kano, Port Harcourt, etc., arose. I mean, as we saw there, you were doing an interview with Symphony Television, and the issue came up.
Yeah, it just came. He asked me, "What is this position of the Igbos in Nigeria today?" And I tried to answer that question. Some people have quarreled with the word the Igbos created Lagos and so on and so forth. I think that was taking the thing out of context. What nobody can deny as a fact is that the Igbos have contributed immensely in the development of Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, and many other cities. And I don't see why anybody should quarrel with that statement of fact.
Well, the fact is that people will wonder what evidence there is. Because, I mean,
I can give you.
You're a former governor.
Yeah.
I mean, what you say has a lot of weight. And so when you say that the Igbos built those cities, you mentioned it was taken out of context. When you say they built those cities, people say, what evidence is there to support that assertion? And did they build those cities to the exclusion of other ethnic groups, including those from the cities that you mentioned?
What I can tell you is, in any city that the Igbos have contributed greatly in building, they have come very close second to the indigenous population, and sometimes neck to neck. Let's take the two first cities that I mentioned. You know, in Lagos, if there are 10 markets in Lagos, 7 were built from swamp by Igbo traders. Not to talk about manufacturers in that city, not to talk about those who have built residential houses and those who have built hospitality industry. In this city, Abuja, this has been said by even former ministers of the Abuja Capital Territory, that about 70% of the hospitality industry in this city are owned by Igbos. And also about 70% of the plazas are owned by Igbos. Not to talk about houses that are up for rent.
So businesses in general.
Yes. So these are things that are common knowledge to anybody in this country. And I don't see why we should quarrel with that. Let me even ask those who are quarreling with these facts. How many cities in the Southeast have people outside the Southeast contributed in building? And the answer I have for them is that, well, you see, business goes where there's infrastructure. The seaport in Lagos is about the only seaport that's operating in Nigeria. And the Igbos do a lot of importation of goods. So they have to settle where the seaport is, build markets to sell whatever they have imported into the country. And then whatever they have manufactured, they can easily send them along the West African coast to other West African cities. The same thing here. You cannot compare the infrastructure that the federal government has built in Abuja to any other infrastructure in the Southeast. And people being entrepreneurs, they take advantage of it. And they come and they help to develop the place for their business. And I don't think anything is wrong with that. Every other person is free to do so. But it's just because these people are entrepreneurs. They take risks. And are ready to go away from home and face challenges. And whatever they meet there, they try to overcome.
Right. But there is a wider context to this, isn't there? And the wider context in which you were making that assertion was that in the face of, in spite of these considerable contributions and the fact that the Igbos are already a considerable economic asset to Nigeria, given that it would be logical to assume that they would also be a big political asset if they were to participate fully and equally in politics. Is that a fair summary?
It is a fair statement, but unfortunately, if we keep politics and business on the scale, the Igbos will go for business, and that will weigh more than those of them in politics. I tell you, for example, my friend and I, late Governor Ezife, when we had a candidate of Igbo extraction, we didn't mind what party we owed allegiance to. What was more important to us was to conscientize the Igbo population in Abuja to vote for their own. Why? If you have so much assets here and you don't have somebody in government who is sympathetic to you, you may have somebody who is exploitative to you. And therefore, to protect their interests, they should show interest in politics and vote their own kind to protect their investments. And in spite of our preaching from markets to markets, on the day of the election, the young boys were playing football on the main road. And many of them who registered to vote in the market were at home and couldn't go out to go and vote where they registered. So you have this laissez-faire attitude. The Igbos have come to think that, you know, they can just survive without government, and they're not so much into government. Yes, they were more interested when they had these Azikiwes and the Emai Okparas than they are today. But I think what has happened in the interregnum has made the showing of Peter Obi to bring out that matter to the fore again. Because when the Igbos felt that they should have been given an opportunity by the major political parties to run for the presidency, and they were disappointed both in PDP and APT. And Peter suddenly came out from Labour Party. They went for him wherever they were. The fact that an Igbo was on the ballot, that was all that made the magic for Peter. And of course, there were two other factors. The youths rooted for him, and of course also the Muslim tickets did not help. So the Christians felt, okay, we have a Christian on the ticket. But you see, this has changed the political dynamics in this country, because it suddenly showed that when the Igbos are united and they have an interest wherever they resided, like in FCT, Abuja, like in Lagos, they made a dramatic showing for Peter.
Right, but there were quite a lot of senior Igbo politicians who didn't support him, and they were quite vocal and public in that lack of support. But let me stay with that interview. But I mean, you talk about the Igbos and their entrepreneurship and so on. Why is that happening in the Southeast? Why haven't, I mean, it didn't happen during your time as governor. Why isn't there more pressure on the politicians and, you know, from the business class to say we've got to develop our region, never mind other regions. I mean, we need to diversify the economies in the Southeast and try and get them to earn money away from that feeding bottle that you're talking about.
Let me recall my friend again, Governor Ezife. He's the one who started preaching think home philosophy as governor in Anambra State. Now, the Ohaneze is preaching think home. And we are beginning to realize that if the efforts we have made all over Nigeria and all over the world, that if we put 50% of that effort, we will create an economy as robust as Dubai in the Southeast. And let me say also, you know, in Spain, the Barcelonians wanted to succeed. But when they were
The
refused,
Catalonians.
yes, when they refused,
Right.
they went back and developed their place, and that is the economic capital of the place. We also give our people the example of California. California didn't want to go away from the United States, but they are about the 6th largest economy in the world, still inside the United States, and benefiting from the large country that they belong to. So we think that if our people can think home and develop home as they have tried to develop other places, we will create a robust economy, and instead of we going somewhere to sell our merchandise, people will come to our place.
Yeah, that's an interesting